For 3 years, I sold roses at the cemetery gates, a ghost among the grieving, invisible to everyone who passed. Then one afternoon, a woman stopped and stared at me like she'd seen a miracle. She whispered a name I hadn't heard in 40 years, a name I thought I'd buried with my past. What she said next shattered the walls I'd built around my broken heart, and reminded me that some debts can never be forgotten, only repaid. My name is Thomas Reed, and I wasn't always the quiet man selling flowers to mourners. 40 years ago, I was a successful cardiac surgeon in Boston, living in a brownstone, driving a Mercedes, married to a beautiful woman named Claire. I had everything society said mattered: money, status, respect. But I was hollow inside, chasing achievements to fill a void I didn't understand. Then one decision, one moment of cowardice, cost me everything worth having. It happened on a winter night in 1984. I was driving home from the hospital after a grueling 18-hour shift. Snow was falling, roads were treacherous, and I was exhausted. At a red light, I saw a car skid and slam into a telephone pole 50 yards ahead. Steam rose from the crumpled hood. I could see a figure slumped over the steering wheel. Every instinct as a doctor screamed at me to stop, to help, to do what I'd sworn to do, but I didn't stop. I was tired. It was late. Emergency services would arrive soon. Someone else would handle it. I told myself these lies as I drove past, as I left another human being bleeding and alone in the darkness. I went home, poured a drink, and tried to forget what I'd done. The next morning, I learned the truth. The driver was a 28-year-old teacher named Margaret Mitchell. She died at the scene. The paramedics said if someone had provided immediate care, she might have survived. I carried that knowledge like a stone in my chest. Nobody knew I'd been there. I never told anyone, not even Claire. But guilt is a patient destroyer. It ate away at me slowly, corroding everything good in my life. I started drinking heavily, making mistakes at work, pushing away everyone who cared about me. Claire tried to understand, tried to reach me, but I was drowning and pulling her under with me. After 2 years of watching me self-destruct, she filed for divorce. I didn't fight it. I didn't deserve her. My medical license was suspended after I showed up drunk to perform a routine procedure. No one was harmed, but the hospital had no choice. I was 43 years old, divorced, unemployed, and consumed by self-hatred. I sold the brownstone, gave Claire most of the money in the divorce, and disappeared. I moved to a small town in Vermont, as far from my old life as possible, working odd jobs under the table, barely surviving. Then I met Linda. She was a librarian, quiet and kind, with eyes that saw through my defenses. She knew I was running from something but never pushed me to explain. We married quietly at the courthouse, and for 15 years, she gave me something I didn't think I deserved. Peace, not happiness, exactly. I never felt I had the right to that. But Linda's steady presence, her gentle acceptance, created a space where I could breathe. We never had much money. I worked at a hardware store, she at the library. We lived in a small rental house with a garden Linda tended lovingly. She never asked about my past, never demanded explanations for the nightmares that woke me screaming Margaret Mitchell's name. She just held me and whispered that everyone deserves forgiveness, even from themselves. I never quite believed her. Linda died 3 years ago, her heart giving out suddenly while she was watering her roses. One moment she was there, humming softly, the next she was gone. The doctor said it was quick, painless, but losing her shattered what remained of me. She'd been my anchor, my reason to keep going. Without her, I drifted. I couldn't afford the rental house alone. I moved into a tiny efficiency apartment near Greenwood Cemetery and took the only job I could find, selling flowers at the cemetery gates. The owner, Mr. Patterson, was elderly and needed help. He paid me in cash and didn't ask questions. Every morning, I'd arrive before dawn, arrange fresh flowers in buckets, and wait for mourners to arrive. It was fitting. Somehow, I spent my days surrounded by death, selling beauty to people drowning in grief. I recognized their faces, not individually, but collectively. The same devastation I saw in the mirror. I'd hand them roses or lilies, accept their crumpled bills, and watch them walk toward graves that held pieces of their hearts. I was invisible to them, just another fixture of their sorrow. I always kept a single red rose aside. At the end of each day, I'd walk to Linda's grave and place it on her headstone. I'd tell her about my day, apologize again for not being the man she deserved, thank her for loving me anyway. Then I'd return to my empty apartment, eat something from a can, and wait for tomorrow to repeat the same routine. 3 years passed this way. Seasons changed, mourners came and went, and I existed in a fog of quiet penance. I didn't expect anything to change. I didn't want it to. This half-life felt appropriate for someone like me, someone who'd watched a young woman die rather than inconvenience himself. Then came the afternoon that shattered everything. It was early October, the air crisp and bright. I was arranging chrysanthemums when a woman in her 60s approached. She was elegant, well-dressed, carrying herself with quiet dignity. She reached for a bouquet of white roses, then froze, staring at me with wide eyes. "Thomas," she whispered. "Thomas, Reed." I felt ice water flood my veins. Nobody had called me by that name in decades. I started to deny it, but something in her face stopped me. She looked familiar, though I couldn't place her. "I'm Sarah's mother," she said, her voice trembling. "Margaret Mitchell." The world tilted. Sarah Mitchell. The woman I'd left to die 40 years ago. I couldn't speak, couldn't move, couldn't breathe. She knew. Somehow, she knew. Margaret sat down on the bench beside my flower stand, and I collapsed next to her, waiting for the accusation, the rage I deserved. But when she spoke, her voice was gentle. "I saw you that night," she said. 40 years ago, at the accident, I was in the car behind you. I saw you stop at the light, saw you watching. I saw your face when you drove away. I never forgot it." Tears poured down my face. "I'm so sorry," I choked out. "I'm so sorry. I was a coward. I was tired and selfish, and I left her there. I've lived with it every day since. I destroyed my life over it, but that doesn't matter. Nothing I've suffered equals what I took from her, from you. I'm so sorry." I expected her to scream, to call me a murderer, to finally give voice to the condemnation I'd heaped on myself for decades. Instead, she reached out and took my hand. "I know," she said quietly. "I tracked you down years ago. I watched your life fall apart. I saw you lose your career, your wife, everything. I watched you punish yourself more thoroughly than any court could have. And I realized something, Thomas. Hatred was destroying me too. My daughter was gone, and hating you wouldn't bring her back. It was just poison I was drinking, hoping it would hurt you." She pulled an envelope from her purse, worn and yellowed with age. Sarah kept a journal. After she died, I read every word. Trying to hold on to her, she wrote about her students, her dreams, her hopes. And she wrote this, 2 weeks before the accident. "I want you to hear it." With shaking hands, she read, "Today, I learned something important. We spend so much time judging people, deciding who deserves compassion and who doesn't. But grace isn't something we earn. It's something we give, especially to those who think they don't deserve it. I want to live a life that offers grace to everyone, even people who make terrible mistakes, especially them, because everyone is fighting battles we can't see." Margaret folded the letter carefully. "My daughter believed in grace, even for people who fail catastrophically. For 40 years, I've struggled to honor that. When I saw you here, selling flowers, clearly punishing yourself every single day, I realized this was my chance. Thomas, what you did was unforgivable. But Sarah would have forgiven you. And if she could, then maybe I can try." I broke completely then, sobbing like a child. 40 years of guilt, shame, and self-hatred poured out. Margaret held my hand and let me weep. This stranger I'd wronged more deeply than anyone. When I finally stopped, she spoke again. "I'm not saying this erases what happened. Sarah is still gone. But you've suffered enough. You've punished yourself enough. She's gone, and I'm still here, and we both deserve peace. Maybe it's time you forgave yourself." She stood to leave, then turned back. "I come here every Tuesday to visit Sarah's grave. Section C, under the oak tree. Sometimes I could use company for the walk. If you'd like to join me, I'll be there at 2 o'clock. The next Tuesday, I met Margaret at the gates. Together, we walked to Sarah's grave. I placed flowers there and spoke to her daughter for the first time, apologizing, thanking her mother for grace I didn't deserve. Margaret stood beside me, and when I finished, she smiled sadly. This became our routine. Every Tuesday, Margaret and I would walk together to Sarah's grave. We talked about Sarah, about Linda, about regret and redemption, and whether broken people can ever truly heal. Slowly, Margaret became my friend. This woman who had every right to hate me, but chose something harder. She helped me find purpose again. Together, we started a small foundation in Sarah's name, providing scholarships for teachers in underserved communities. I learned that while I couldn't undo the past, I could honor Sarah's memory by doing what she believed in, offering grace and building something good from terrible loss. I still sell flowers at the cemetery. But now I'm not hiding. I'm present, connected, trying to live in a way that honors both the woman I failed and the woman who showed me mercy. Some mistakes can never be fully repaired, but maybe, with grace from others, and finally from ourselves, we can stop running and start living again. If this story moved you, please like and subscribe. Have you ever struggled to forgive yourself or someone else? Share your journey in the comments. Sometimes our stories help others find their own path to healing. Your voice matters here.